Hey y'all! In this video, we're going to dive back into the tool database and get into a topic that I've seen mentioned a couple of times, but I think needs to be explored a little further. I've gotten several questions on this topic, and this has to do with the tool naming conventions within the tool database. So, let's go ahead and get into the tool database and get going on this. In order to get into the tool database, we have to have a file open out here in the drawing space. So I'll go into create a new file, and none of these settings over here matter at all, simply because we're not going to be doing any drawing or designing out here. So I'll just click OK and accept whatever is in there. Now there are a couple ways of getting into the tool database. The first way is to come up here to the Toolpaths menu and then come down and click on Tool Database. Another way is to come over into the Toolpath tab and click on this icon right here, Display Tool Database. I'll go ahead and do that since I'm over here. Beginning with version 10, Vectric has made several improvements and several additions to the tool database in the way tools are added, the way tools are named, and the way tools are organized. Now, I have already done several videos on my channel that have to do with adding tools and various other parameters within the tool database for earlier versions of the software. All of those videos are in a playlist called the Tool Database that I've put a link to down in the description box of this video. In this video, we're going to focus on version 10 and later. Now, just looking at my tool list over here, under Imperial Tools, since that's what I work in most often, we can see that there's a little bit of a difference in how the tools are named and displayed. Down here in the ball nose bits, we have the diameters and the dimensions of the tools listed within parentheses, but my end mills, they're not. This brings up the naming convention for various tools. Now I'll just select my 1/4 inch end mill because it's the most common tool that I use. Then when I select that end mill, it brings up the tool geometry and the cutting parameters. We see up here that the tool type is an end mill, and the units are in inches, and the diameter is 1/4 inch. Now, when it comes to adding a new tool, for example, let's say I bought a 3/8 inch tool, and I need to add it to the database, there are several ways of doing that. And again, I have gone over this topic in previous videos that are listed in that playlist down below. In the newer versions of the software, this has been made a lot easier, basically based on the tool naming conventions. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we come up here to the title of this particular tool, end mill 0.25 inches, and we click on this little Edit Tool Name Format, click on that, we open up this dialog right here. Now, there is the name of the tool, end mill 1/4 inch. But if we look up here, we see tool type in brackets, diameter in brackets, and units in brackets. This is what I mean by the tool naming convention. The software has taken the tool type and listed it here, the diameter and listed it here, and the units and listed it here. So all of my end mills are displayed the same way. Let me cancel this, and I'll go into my 1/2 inch end mill, and I'll click on that, it's the same thing. The tool type, the diameter, and the units. And that's displayed down here. Now we see there's a checkbox here that says Set as Default for End Mill. So anything I add in this end mill category is going to be displayed the same way as long as I don't change any of these parameters up here. So let me cancel this once again and I'll demonstrate. Going back to my 1/4 inch end mill, let's say for purposes of discussion, I've bought a 3/8 end mill and I want to add that. Now there's a couple of ways of doing that, and again I've already gone over those. I can click on Add a Tool under the selected group, or I can just copy this tool and change the geometry. I will come down to this icon right here, copy the selected tool or group, and just click it. I now have a second 1/4 inch end mill listed. This one is highlighted, and if you notice, the icon for it is grayed out. That's because it hasn't been added to the database yet. Now again, I've got a 3/8 end mill, so it is an end mill. I'm going to leave the tool type that way. The units are inches, and the diameter of this end mill is 3/8 of an inch. So I'll type 3/8 and then tap the equals button, and if you'll notice, the title changed automatically. I'll leave the number of flutes as 2. Up here, this entire section up here, is what is established in the Edit Tools name format. Everything else down below is a variable. This is set. We know it's an end mill. The units are inches. The diameter is 3/8 of an inch. And the number of flutes I can adjust. But these are absolutes for this tool. Now it's asking me where I want to copy settings from. I can choose to copy the settings for this tool from the 1/4 inch end mill, which I already had, which is what I had copied. I need to select the machine that this tool is going to be associated with, and I want to select the material to extract those settings from. Now, I'm working within my hardwood material, so I'll click on this menu and select hardwood. So what I'm telling the software right now is to copy the settings from my 1/4 inch end mill associated with this machine for hardwood. And I'll click copy, and now I can get into all of my cutting parameters and feeds and speeds. I can set my pass depth, my step over, my spindle speed, the feed rate units, plunge rate, tool number, etc. So adding that tool was a simple matter of copying one end mill that's already within the database and changing that diameter, then copying these parameters here from that tool and then making adjustments as I need to. In order to establish this tool in the database, I now have to click Apply, and we see the name of this tool has changed to 0.375 inches. That's now a part of my database. Now let's go a little bit further into these naming conventions, as that is the actual purpose of this video. So we'll come up here and click on Edit the Tool Name Format. You may or may not like this type of a display. This type of display is established by Vectric, and this format is what you will receive when you install the software. But what if we want to make some changes? For instance, it's a small thing, but if we look at my end mills, there are no parentheses on any of these measurements over here. But there is down here in my ball nose bits. Let me go ahead and cancel this, and I'll go into my 1/4 inch ball nose bit. Now if I go up here into the naming convention, we see that I simply have the name ball nose and 1/4 inch in parentheses, and set as default for ball nose is unchecked. Well, if I want these bits to display the same as these bits, I'll need to change that naming convention. So let me go back into my 1/4 inch end mill and just take a look at what I've got. I've got tool type, diameter, and units, all in brackets. Let me go ahead and cancel that, and I'll go back into my 1/4 inch ball nose. And let me look up here. I don't have any of those variables listed. I have just the name of the bit typed in there. There is a way to get those variables placed in the title for the format here. And that is just as it says right down here. Come up into the format blank and right click. Then come down to geometry, and there we have the variable for the tool type. So we want tool type. We just click on that and it brings it right up there, and we see the name is changed to ball nose. Then I'll give it a space, right click, go back to geometry. I want the diameter, and it says 1/4 inch. Space bar to give it a space, right click, geometry, units. Now I have ball nose 0.25 inches, the same as the way my end mills are displayed. Now, if I want to change all of my ball nose bits to this format, I will set it as default for the ball nose. Then I'll come down here and check Update Existing Ball Nose Tools and click OK. And all of my ball nose bits have changed. It's a small difference, but it gives you control of how they are changed and how they are displayed to better help you organize your tool database. Now, let's suppose you don't want it displayed in decimal. You want it displayed in fractions. Well, we can go back up here into our naming convention, and let's right-click here, go to geometry. We have the option for the diameter in fractions. So what I'll do is I'll click off there, click down in here, and I want to select where it says diameter. Just select that bracket, the word diameter, and then this bracket. Then right-click, geometry, diameter fraction. And the name changes to that fraction. All it's basically done is added the vertical line and a capital F within those brackets. But it's going to display it in fraction rather than in decimal. Now I don't want to make that change, so I'll click cancel, and that change was thrown out. But going back in here and looking, you have several ways of setting up how your database displays the name of the bit based on geometry, cutting parameters, feeds and speeds, the type of material, and your machine. You can use as many of these as you want in the naming convention, but do know the more information you put here, the wider this is going to display, and the harder it's going to be to find specific bits. I'll give you an example. We'll cancel this. If we look up here on my thread mills, I already have to scoot this over to see what's going on and which diameter of which bit I have. But the same naming convention is true down here in V-bits, form tools, engraving bits, any tool that you have or may end up getting. A lot of this information was imported from older versions of the software, so the naming convention wasn't an option on those older versions. It is now, I just haven't changed it. So let me check my 90-degree V-bit here. I'll click on this, and we have just the name. What I can do is go into the geometry. I have a 1/2 inch 90-degree V-bit. We'll do Tool Type. Right-click again. Included angle. I didn't put a space. Geometry. We'll go into diameter. I didn't put a space again. I got to remember to do that. And then finally, units. So now I have V-bit, 90 degree, 1/2 inch diameter in inches. If I want to set that as the default for all of my V-bits, I'll click on that, and then update my existing V-bits. I'll click on that. Click OK, and now all of my V-bits have changed. I now have the title V-bit 60.025 inches. I can go a little bit further into this. Let's go back in and let's make one change. And that is right here between included angle and diameter. Give it a space and type the word degree. Now I'll update all existing V-bits, make sure I have set as default for V-bit, click OK. And now I have 15 degree, 60 degree, 30 degree, 60 degree. All of that is now included. I can tell which bit is which. And everything looks good from here. You may be wondering, why go through all this bother? Why go through all this trouble? Well, simply put, as I demonstrated up here with this 3/8 inch bit, now when I go to add a new end mill, a new form tool, a new ball nose, a new V-bit, all I have to do is find something that's very similar to it. And let's say my 1/8 inch end mill. I want to add a 3/16 inch end mill. I'll select that end mill because it's close to the 3/16 inch that I want to add. Come down here and I'll copy that tool. I'll change the cutting diameter to 3/16. Tap the equals button. That end mill is now in place. It's now named rather. 2 flutes. I'll copy all of this. Copy the settings from the 1/8 inch end mill, Gatton CNC, hardwood. Copy that. Click apply. And now my 3/16 end mill is entered into my tool database. That saved a lot of trouble. That saved a lot of hassle. Now, just to make sure that I have a good copy of this database stored on the cloud, I'll come up here to online and I'll upload this database to the cloud. Yes, I wish to continue. I want to overwrite the current database that I have. Tool database has been uploaded on the server. Now, when I go outside to my other computer with Aspire version 11 loaded on it, I can open the tool database, download this new tool database, and my new bits, my new tools are installed, and the naming convention for the ball nose and the V bits have been changed. So the naming convention is important in that we can standardize the names of our tools and make adding new tools that much easier. We no longer have to go in and add a tool under the selected group and reconfigure the entire thing. We can simply copy a tool, change the diameter, copy the settings, make any adjustments, and go from there. So, I hope you got something out of this video. And if you did, I do hope you'll give me a thumbs up. Now, if you have any questions on the tool database or tool naming conventions, this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be hosting a live Q&A session right here on my YouTube channel where you can ask any questions about anything I've demonstrated in this video, the tool database in general, or any other questions on the Vectric software. That's today at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on my YouTube channel, and I've put a link to that live Q&A session down in the description box of this video. Now, these live Q&A sessions are a great reason to go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. And when you click that red subscribe button, click that notification bell right next to it. Then click it a second time and set that menu to all notifications. Then you'll get a notification the next time I post a video and the next time I go live. So I hope to see you this afternoon for the live Q&A session. And as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and y'all take care.